My name is Erin Blake, and I'm 35 years old. If you'd asked me a year ago to describe my life, I would have said it was steady. Not glamorous, not tragic. Just solid in a way I'd earned one late night, one on-time bill, one carefully planned grocery list at a time. I work in IT for a mid-sized company, nothing flashy, mostly troubleshooting, internal systems, and answering emails that start with, "Hey, quick question," and are never actually quick. My days are screens and tickets and sticky notes. My nights are quiet, batch cooking, budgeting spreadsheets, and streaming shows I rarely finish before falling asleep on the couch. I know when every bill is due. I know what's in my savings without opening the app. I know exactly how many months I could float my life if everything suddenly went sideways. I like ballast, the unexciting, reliable weight that keeps your life from tipping over. For a long time, I thought my ballast included my boyfriend, Jason Miller. Jason and I had been together for 7 years. We weren't married, but we lived like we were. Joint lease, joint savings, joint arguments about whose turn it was to take out the trash. He worked in retail management, running a clothing store in a busy mall. He was good at it too, charming, quick with a joke, able to talk anyone into buying the shirt and the jacket and the shoes. We were never rich, but we were comfortable. Nice enough apartment, used car that ran, one trip a year if we planned well. We lived within our means. And then, about 2 years ago, something shifted. It started small. Jason got really into social media, following these influencer guys who posted about building your personal brand and living a luxury lifestyle. They filmed themselves stepping out of cars that cost more than our entire savings, dripping in jewelry, drinking champagne on balconies that definitely weren't in our zip code. At first, it was just background noise. I'd be cooking while he scrolled on the couch, phone volume up. "Look at this," he'd say, shoving the screen toward me. "Dude's my age and already has a Rolex and a condo in Miami." "Good for him," I'd reply, stirring sauce. "Our landlord finally fixed the bathroom fan. That's my condo in Miami." He'd laugh, but slowly the laughs disappeared. "Why are we still driving this car? It looks like a rideshare reject," he'd say. "Because it's paid off," I'd answer. "Everyone at work is leveling up. I feel like I'm stuck." "Stuck is paying rent on time and having a savings account?" I'd tease. Wild. He stopped laughing at that too. Requests came next. "Maybe we should trade in the car. Get something nicer. We could finance it." "I need to upgrade my wardrobe. That manager from corporate commented on my style the other day. In a good way. But I know what she meant." "Why don't we ever go somewhere expensive? We're always doing budget date nights." I tried to keep up where I could. I picked up extra hours, did freelance tech support for a small marketing firm on the side. But every time I saved enough to make one of his wants happen, the target moved. The shirt wasn't enough. Now he wanted the jacket. The nicer restaurant wasn't special. Now he wanted a weekend away. The small accessory became just this one thing. It's an investment in my image. The word investment started to sound like a threat. Last month, the necklace entered the picture. We were at the mall on a Saturday. Jason needed new shoes for work. So I trudged along, mentally tallying prices before we even stepped inside. On the way back out, he grabbed my hand and tugged me toward a jewelry store. "Come on, just to look," he said. The store was all glass and bright lights, the kind of place where everything looks like it belongs to someone wealthier than you. A salesperson materialized within seconds. Jason beelined to a display case. "There," he said, pointing. It was a necklace, white gold chain, diamond pendant. It hung on a velvet stand, the kind of piece that catches the light and your common sense in the same moment. The little tag under it read, 3D 500. "I want this," he said. I stared at the tag, then at him. "Jason, that's a lot." "It's not that much," he said, like we were arguing over an extra side of fries. "You make decent money. And it would look sick layered with that Cuban link I already have. Very multiple streams vibe." I pressed my lips together. "We can't just drop $3,500 on a necklace. Rent's going up next month, the electric bill." "You always have a reason to say no," he cut in, his voice going flat. "You never want me to have nice things." "That's not true," I said quietly. "I got you that bracelet last month." "The one on sale?" He gave a short, humorless laugh. "It doesn't count." I felt my cheeks heat, embarrassment and anger tangling together. The salesperson hovered nearby, pretending not to listen and failing. "We're not buying the necklace," I said finally. "Not now." We left without another word. Jason didn't hold my hand on the way out. He didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. just scrolled on his phone, headphones in, videos of men with bigger apartments and shinier wrists lighting up his screen. 3 days ago, he brought it up again. We were eating pasta I'd thrown together after work. I'd just finished reconciling our budget before dinner, shifting numbers around to cover the rising rent and the surprise car repair from last month. My brain was still in spreadsheet mode. I keep thinking about that necklace, Jason said, twirling pasta like he was making small talk. I sighed. Jason, no, listen, you didn't really give it a chance. He leaned forward. It's not even that expensive. It's $3,500. You can afford it. I can't just pretend $3,500 is pocket change, I said, forcing my voice to stay level. We have bills. The landlord sent that notice about next year's rent hike. Our savings. Here we go, he muttered. The Aaron Blake Financial Anxiety Hour. I set my fork down, feeling my jaw tighten. It's not anxiety to look at numbers and realize they don't magically multiply because you want them to. He cocked his head. Or maybe it's that you just don't like spending money on me. That's not fair. He shrugged, eyes cool. I work hard. I deserve nice things. Every time I ask for something, you turn it into a lecture. I'm not lecturing. I'm trying to be responsible. There's a difference. He pushed his plate away. You know what? I'm tired of this. I see how other couples live. Their partners support their goals. You just hold me back. The words landed like slaps. Because I don't want to blow our future house down payment on a necklace? I asked softly. He scoffed. Future house? At the rate you cling to every dollar, we'll die in this apartment. Silence stretched between us, heavy and ugly. Jason stood abruptly. Fine, don't buy it, but don't expect me to be okay with this. What does that mean? I asked. He grabbed his phone, sliding it into his pocket. It means if you're not willing to invest in me, why should I stay? Jason... He looked at me then, really looked, and something shuddered over in his expression. His voice went calm in a way that made my skin crawl. If you don't buy me that necklace, he said, sleep somewhere else tonight. The room tilted. For a second, all I could hear was the tick of the cheap wall clock and the faint rush of traffic outside. I watched the condensation slide down my water glass, one droplet racing another toward the ring at the bottom. When I finally met his eyes, there was no trace of the man who used to bring me gas station flowers. Just because. Just calculation. A test he was sure I'd fail. I swallowed. As you wish, I said quietly. He blinked. What? You heard me. I picked up my fork again, my hand only shaking a little. If a necklace matters more to you than I do, you've already made your choice. He grabbed his keys. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest, I replied. There's a difference. He rolled his eyes and headed for the door. Whatever. I'm going to work. We'll talk tonight. When the door shut, the apartment went too quiet. I sat there, staring at the half-eaten pasta, my brain replaying the last few months like someone had hit fast forward. His phone always face down, notifications from names I didn't recognize, new clothes appearing without any discussion, receipts in the trash for restaurants I'd never been to with him, vague explanations about networking. I told myself I was overthinking, that everyone dresses nicer sometimes, that I didn't need to know where every dollar went as long as the bills got paid. But staring at the empty hallway, one thought rose through the noise. This isn't about a necklace. It's about control. It's about how far he can push me. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. Walked to the window. Watched him cross the parking lot, slide into his car without looking back. By the time his taillights disappeared, I'd made up my mind. I picked up my phone, opened my email, and typed, "Hi, I'm not feeling well. I need to take a sick day." I hit send, then locked my phone and set it face up on the counter, just to be petty. Then I went to our bedroom. I started with the usual places: dresser drawers, the top shelf of the closet, under the bed. Within minutes, I found shopping bags I'd never seen, crumpled in the back of the closet. High-end labels, shirts and jackets and shoes with price tags still on some of them. I checked the tags, my stomach tightening. $800 jacket, $600 sneakers, a backpack that cost almost as much as our monthly car insurance. How? I whispered to the empty room. On what salary? I knelt to slide another bag out and my hand bumped the nightstand. The drawer slid open an inch. Inside was Jason's old paper planner from before he went digital. I almost closed it again. Then something in me, the same part that color codes budgets, wouldn't let it go. I flipped it open. The first few months were normal. Work shifts, bill reminders, birthdays. Then, about 4 months ago, the pattern changed. Initials started appearing, written in quick, tight handwriting next to daytime and evening slots. VP 2 p.m., coffee shop on 8th. VP 7 p.m., Lark Hotel Bar. VP lunch, mall, food court. The initials repeated every few days. Different locations, always the same 2 letters. I stared at the page until the lines blurred. My mouth went dry. It could be a work contact, I told myself, a vendor, someone from corporate. It could be nothing. But the hotel bar was not nothing. I closed the planner slowly, my heart pounding loud enough to hear in my ears. Little things that hadn't added up for months slid into place like they'd been waiting. I walked back to the living room, grabbed my laptop, and opened our banking app. If I was wrong, I'd apologize to the universe later. If I was right, then the necklace was the least of our problems. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment. Then I logged in and clicked on our joint accounts. The numbers didn't lie. Our joint savings account, the one I'd watched creep up month after month, the one I mentally labeled house, emergencies, future, had been just under $20,000 6 months ago. Current balance, $8,143.27. I clicked into the transaction history, my pulse thudding in my throat. Transfers to Jason Miller, checking $500 and $750 or $1,000. Over and over, little siphons spaced out at just enough that if you weren't paying attention, you'd never notice. I scrolled back through months, watching the totals add up in my head. 500 here, 1,000 there, 900 the week after, more than $12,000 gone. My stomach rolled. I scrolled back up, double-checking dates. Every transfer out of our savings lined up suspiciously close to the planner entries with those neat little VP initials and coffee or drinks scribbled beside them. I opened the checking account next. There they were, charges from restaurants with white tablecloth websites, Ubers to parts of town we never visited, bar tabs that looked like someone was buying rounds for half the city, cash withdrawals larger than anything I ever took out, sometimes twice a week. On paper, Jason's salary hadn't gone up, our expenses had, and somehow he'd still found money to play big spender. My mouth tasted metallic. I realized I'd been clenching my jaw. I sat back, staring at the softly glowing screen. He'd been draining the account we built together while railing about how I never invested in him by buying his dream necklace. I thought of that necklace again, the way his eyes had gleamed when he pointed at it in the display case, like he was already imagining himself wearing it in some curated Instagram story. Something in my chest burned, not just hurt, something sharper, recognition. This wasn't impulsive, it was a pattern. And patterns, I understood. I took a breath and stood up, weirdly calm. I moved through the apartment with a quiet efficiency that felt like running an emergency protocol. Gather critical data, secure the essentials, then exit. First, documents. Birth certificate, social security card, work contract, anything with my name on it that someone else might misplace. Second, laptop, backup drives, the little external SSD that held every budget, every old photo, every freelance file. I slid them into my backpack with trembling hands. Third, the few sentimental things that were truly mine. My grandmother's ring, the thrift store lamp I'd carried through 2 apartments, the worn hoodie from college that still smelled faintly like dorm laundry detergent. I packed a suitcase with enough clothes for a week. I didn't overthink it, just basics, comfort, a pair of flats I could wear to work. I loaded everything into my car, locking it between each trip, like Jason might materialize out of thin air and ask what I thought I was doing. Back inside, the apartment felt emptier somehow, or maybe that was just me. That's when a different idea took shape. If he could stage a life for social media, I could stage a truth for reality. I went back to the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled every hidden shopping bag he'd stuffed into corners and behind shoeboxes. I laid out the designer clothes across the bed, the $800 jacket, the almost $2,000 backpack, the sneakers that cost more than 3 months of our internet bill. Then I printed out key pages from our online banking, the transfer history from our joint savings, the current pathetic balance, the summary of his personal checking deposits that lined up perfectly with the money he'd siphoned off. I set those papers among the clothes like they were part of the display. Receipts for dinners I'd never attended crinkled under my fingers. Finally, I went to the nightstand and retrieved his planner. I flipped it open to the most incriminating page, the one with VP Lark Hotel Bar, 7 p.m., written in looping, confident ink, and placed it dead center on the bed. Wardrobe doors wide open, drawers pulled out, everything exposed. If he wanted a big, dramatic moment, he was going to get one. Just not the kind he expected. In the kitchen, I grabbed a notepad and pen. For a second, I just stared at the blank paper, my hand hovering. Dear Jason, here is a detailed breakdown of how you've... No, this wasn't a budget report. I kept it simple. I wrote, I'll be at a hotel. We can talk when you're ready to be honest. I left the note on the counter where he always tossed his keys. On my way out, I paused at the doorway and looked back at the scene I'd curated. The bed buried under things he valued more than basic respect. The planner that betrayed his secrets. The empty hangers like question marks. The apartment had never looked more honest. At the hotel 15 minutes away, the check-in clerk barely glanced at me. I gave my ID and card, took the key card, rode the elevator up, feeling like I was watching someone else's life from outside their body. In the room, I set my suitcase down and sank onto the edge of the bed. My phone blinked with a couple of emails from work, a spam text, nothing from Jason yet. He'd get home around 6. I lay back and stared at the ceiling, counting the slow, relentless seconds until then. At 6:12 p.m., my phone lit up with his name. I watched it buzz on the nightstand until it went dark. A minute later, it rang again, then the texts. Where are you? What the hell did you do to our room? Answer your phone, Aaron. I let them stack up, each one more frantic than the last. At 7:23 p.m., the call came again. I stared at the glowing screen, then swiped to answer. I kept my voice neutral. Hello? What the hell is this? Jason exploded. No greeting, just fury. You went through my stuff. Our stuff, I corrected softly. We share a lease, we share accounts, remember? You had no right, he snapped. I have every right, I said, especially since you've been stealing from our savings account. Silence, not even breathing on the other end, just dead air. I let it stretch. Yeah, I said finally. I saw that too. Over 12 grand moved from our joint savings into your personal account. Money we agreed was for a house someday, or emergencies, not for sneakers and bar tabs. I can explain, he said quickly. I'm sure you can. I sat up straighter. While you're at it, maybe you can explain the planner, the one with the initials. VP twice a week for the last 4 months? Coffee shops, nice restaurants, hotel bars? He didn't answer. Who is she? I asked. And don't insult me by pretending VP stands for vendor presentation. A beat passed, then another. Finally, he whispered, Who told you? I almost laughed. Nobody told me. You did. In ink. You should really stop underestimating the woman who pays attention to everything. He exhaled sharply, the sound ragged. It's not what you think. Oh, good, I said. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been meeting someone regularly, draining our savings, buying expensive crap, and then demanding I buy you a $3,500 necklace on top of it. So please, tell me the version where I'm somehow misunderstanding. More silence. I could hear faint background noise. Drawers, maybe, still hanging open. She's someone I knew before, he said finally. Vanessa Price. We reconnected on social, that's all. We were just catching up. Catching up, I repeated, in hotel bars, twice a week. It wasn't like that, he insisted. Nothing physical happened. I stared at the beige hotel wall. So you're asking me to believe that you've been sneaking around to meet your ex, lying about where you're going, moving money out of our savings, all for purely innocent conversations. It was emotional, he said helplessly. She gets it. She believes in me. She says I deserve better than... Better than what? I cut in, my voice suddenly iced over. Better than someone who pays half your rent and builds savings while you play luxury lifestyle on our dime. He faltered. She likes to spoil me, okay? She bought me some things. It felt good to be appreciated. There it was, the missing piece. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You've been letting your ex buy you designer stuff while you drained our joint savings to keep up appearances. And in the middle of that, you gave me an ultimatum about buying you one more shiny thing. That necklace is different, he said quickly. It's an investment. Jason, I closed my eyes. It's a rock on a chain you wanted me to finance so you could feel like one of those guys in your videos. You're being dramatic, he muttered. We can work this out. Just come home. We'll talk. We are talking, I said, right now. And you're still dodging the only question that matters. Why did you think any of this was okay? I made mistakes, he said. I got carried away. But 7 years, Aaron. A mistake, I said quietly, is forgetting to pay a bill on time. This was 4 months of coordinated lying, repeated transfers, a secret relationship you hid in broad daylight in your planner. That's not a mistake. That's a choice you made over and over. His voice softened. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did. I looked at the dark window, my own reflection staring back. And you kept doing it because you liked the benefits, the attention, the gifts, the ego boost, the money. Please, he said. I heard something crash faintly on his end. Just come home so we can fix this. That's not my home right now, I said. Not as long as you're there and the truth isn't. You can't just walk away, he snapped, panic breaking through. My stuff is there. My life is there. You can't kick me out. We share that lease, I replied. But I've been the one watching the bills. I have every transaction, every transfer. If you want to drag this into a legal mess over who owes what, I have plenty of evidence showing you misused joint funds. He went quiet. I'll be back tomorrow around noon, I continued. I want you out by then. I've already packed most of your things. You can't do this, he said, voice rising again. You're overreacting, okay? You're not thinking straight. 7 years, Aaron, and you're just... You threw those 7 years away the moment you decided my trust was collateral damage, I said. I'm just acknowledging reality. Vanessa doesn't mean anything, he insisted, desperation seeping in. It was just... She made me feel like I wasn't stuck, like I could be more. If more means lying, stealing, and begging two women to bankroll your fantasy, I said flatly, then by all means, go be more with her. He sucked in a breath like I'd slapped him. Jason, I said, suddenly exhausted, pack your things. Find somewhere else to stay. Maybe Vanessa has a spare room. You'll regret this, he said. You can't just erase me. I'm not erasing you, I replied. I'm removing you from the part of my life you proved you didn't respect. Before he could answer, I pulled the phone away from my ear. Don't come to the hotel, I added. If you show up here or refuse to leave tomorrow, I'll call the police and a lawyer in that order. I heard him inhale sharply. You wouldn't... I hung up. The call screen disappeared. His name vanished, replaced by my home screen. I blocked his number. Then the last text that came through from him bounced, undelivered. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was loud and buzzing, like standing too close to a power line. I lay back on the hotel bed, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling until the lines blurred. Somewhere between one breath and the next, a thought floated up, sharp and cold. I thought the worst part was over. I was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. My eyes closed a few times, but every time they did, my mind replayed Jason's voice. His excuses, his, "You're being dramatic," his insistence that 7 years somehow outweighed 4 months of intentional betrayal. Around 2 a.m., someone knocked on the hotel door. A single sharp knock. My heart launched into my throat. I stayed completely still, listening. Then came the voice, muffled, familiar, unwelcome. Aaron, I know you're in there. Can we talk? I didn't move. Please, just open the door. I looked at the deadbolt, the latch, the chain, every point of protection suddenly precious. A moment later, my room phone rang. An old landline with a harsh, jarring tone. I flinched, then picked it up with trembling fingers. Ms. Blake? A calm voice. The front desk. We have a gentleman here insisting he knows you and needs to speak with you. He says it's urgent. My lips felt numb. Did he say his name? He wouldn't give one. Of course he didn't. I inhaled, steadying myself. Please tell him I'm not available, and if he doesn't leave, call security. If he refuses to leave after that, call the police. A brief pause. Then, with the professional detachment of a man who's clearly dealt with messy breakups before, the clerk said, Understood, ma'am. 10 minutes later, the clerk called back to confirm security escorted him outside and warned him not to return. I sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, and exhaled a shaking breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My hands tingled, my chest felt tight. The reality of everything landed in slow, oppressive waves. Even then, a part of me was embarrassed. Another part whispered, This is what happens when someone loses control over their narrative. Jason wasn't devastated, he was exposed. That made him dangerous in ways I hadn't wanted to acknowledge. Eventually, sometime before dawn, I drifted into a shallow, fitful sleep. When I checked out the next morning, the clerk avoided asking questions. He gave me a sympathetic nod instead, a gesture that nearly unraveled me. The drive back to the apartment blurred, gray sky, quiet streets, the kind of morning where everything feels suspended, waiting for the next impact. When I pulled into our parking lot at 11:03, Jason's car was gone. I didn't know if that was good or bad. Inside, the apartment smelled faintly like his cologne, but the space itself felt wrong, like I'd walked into a set that someone forgot to strike. A few things were missing. The designer clothes from the bed, his planner, some toiletries, a couple shirts from the closet. Everything else remained. My note was still on the counter. I stood there, staring at it. At the handwriting I barely recognized as my own. Then I got to work. Box by box, I packed the rest of his belongings. I didn't think. I didn't linger. I didn't reminisce. I moved with methodical efficiency. Fold, place, tape, stack. 3 hours passed in a blur. Around 3 p.m., just as I sealed the last box, a knock sounded at the door. Not frantic, not tentative. Measured. I checked the peephole. Jason. And beside him, his older sister Laura. Of course. She crossed her arms, jaw set in that stern, judgmental line she'd perfected years ago. I opened the door but kept the chain in place. Jason's eyes were red-rimmed, his hair messy, like he'd spent the night pacing. "Aaron, can we please talk?" "No," I said simply. "Your things are right here." I gestured to the neatly stacked boxes visible behind me. Laura frowned. "You're locking him out of his own home? Seriously? Aaron, this is cruel." A laugh, sharp, humorless, escaped me. "Cruel? Laura, your brother drained our joint savings and had a months-long emotional affair with his ex. This is the consequence of his choices." Jason rubbed his face. "I told you it wasn't physical." "That is not the defense you think it is." Laura rolled her eyes. "People screw up. Couples work through it." "Couples work through mistakes," I replied, my voice steady, not calculated betrayal. Jason swallowed hard. "I never meant to—" "You never meant to get caught," I cut in. "There's a difference." He flinched. Laura's gaze sharpened. "He's still on the lease. You can't just kick him out." "Yes," I said calmly, "I can. When I have documented evidence that he misused joint funds, engaged in deception, and put me at financial risk. Would you like to see the transaction list?" Laura blinked. Jason looked like he might vomit. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I simply stated facts. If anything, that rattled them more. I unlatched the chain, just long enough to slide the first box into Jason's arms. He took it silently. Laura huffed. "You're being unnecessarily dramatic." "I'm being precise," I corrected. "It's what I'm good at." She opened her mouth again, but I kept going. "The rest of the boxes are here. Take them. Take him. Take whatever version of the story he fed you. I don't care, but he's not living here anymore." Jason's eyes shimmered with tears. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Aaron, 7 years. You're really ending it like this?" I met his gaze. "You ended it months ago. I'm just catching up." He exhaled shakily. "I made a mistake." "You made a series of choices," I replied. "Clear, intentional choices." I handed him the second box. He and Laura carried everything out in tense, silent trips. Jason tried to speak to me once more on his way back for the last box. "I didn't fall out of love with you," he whispered. I didn't blink. "You didn't fall out of love. You fell in love with attention." His face crumpled. Laura tugged his arm, muttering something about not humiliating himself. When the final box vanished down the hallway, Jason turned back to me. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," I said softly, over and over, because it was easy. Tears welled in his eyes. "So that's it?" "That's reality," I answered. Then I closed the door, locked it, engaged the new deadbolt the locksmith had installed that morning. Only when I leaned back against the door did I realize my hands were trembling. The apartment was too quiet again, too still, too empty. But for the first time in a long time, the quiet didn't feel like something I needed to fix. It felt like air, fresh, cold, honest. The kind that fills a space after a storm finally breaks. 2 months later, I barely recognized my own life in the best possible way. There's a strange thing that happens when chaos leaves your home. At first you feel the ghost of it everywhere. In the silence, in the unused drawer space, in the way your evenings suddenly stretch without someone else's demands filling every minute. Then one morning you wake up and realize that the quiet isn't an absence. It's peace. After Jason moved out, he tried to fight the breakup harder than I expected. 3 days after I changed the locks, I got a message from an unknown number, his, obviously, because he was nothing if not predictable. "We need to talk about the lease, and the savings, and the items I left behind." I forwarded the message to my lawyer. He drafted a short, devastatingly calm response outlining the documented transfers, the financial misuse, the planner entries, and the bank statements. We made it clear that if Jason pushed, we would push harder. He backed down so quickly it was almost embarrassing. In the end, he returned part of the money he'd siphoned from the joint savings, just enough to avoid a legal battle he knew he would lose. I didn't chase the rest. It wasn't worth the energy. Word traveled fast among our mutual acquaintances. I didn't share details, but others apparently did. From what I heard, mostly through people who didn't realize I'd stopped caring, Jason's fall from influencer aspirant to cautionary tale was swift. He missed shifts at work. Meetings, he'd said. Management apparently didn't appreciate being stood up. He was written up twice, then fired. Vanessa, the ex, dropped him the moment the job was gone and the money dried up. I wasn't surprised. People like her didn't invest in men. They accessorized with them. He moved in with his sister temporarily. No car, because the loan he'd taken out for his big image upgrade was too high for him to manage alone. No more designer outfits either. He'd sold a few to cover bills. The rest? Who knows? I didn't celebrate it. I didn't need to. Consequences are natural. They don't require applause. Meanwhile, my own life began to refill itself quietly, steadily. I found a smaller apartment, cheaper rent, closer to work, sunlight that hit the living room just right every morning. I furnished it slowly, intentionally. A new couch, a desk that didn't wobble, plants I miraculously kept alive. I stopped checking every bank notification like it was a bomb. I cooked dinners I wanted to eat. I slept through the night. I even got a promotion at work, a role that had been hinted at for months, but finally landed in my lap now that my brain had the bandwidth to actually accept it. One Thursday evening, while walking through the grocery store near my new place, I saw him. Jason. He was standing by the produce section, wearing a hoodie I didn't recognize and looking small, dimmed. His eyes were tired, his face thinner, his phone cracked. He saw me a second after I saw him. His entire expression lit up with something desperate. Hope, panic, longing. It was hard to tell. "Aaron," he said, voice soft. I didn't stop walking. I didn't speed up either. I simply moved past him like he was any other person choosing avocados on a Thursday. I didn't turn when he called my name again. Didn't look back. Didn't offer closure that he hadn't earned. By the time I reached self-checkout, my heart was steady. Not cold, just done. Later that night, curled on my couch with takeout pho and a soft blanket, I opened my laptop to handle a few emails. Out of curiosity, just once, I searched for the necklace. The one he'd demanded. The one that had started, or rather revealed, everything. I found it easily. The white gold, the diamond pendant. Scrolling down, something else caught my eye. Purchased 3 weeks ago. Attached to a user review. From a woman named Vanessa Price. My breath stilled. 3 weeks before Jason fought me over that necklace, Vanessa had already bought him the exact same one. The truth hit so fast it knocked the air out of me. Jason hadn't wanted a necklace. He'd wanted two. One luxury gift from the ex who spoiled him, and one from the girlfriend he thought would cover the other half of his fantasy. One for validation. One for ego. One for the image he wanted to project. One to prove to himself, to Vanessa, to the world he thought was watching, that he was a man worthy of luxury. It wasn't about the necklace at all. It was about building a persona on the backs of two women. And in that moment, something inside me didn't shatter. It fell into place. I closed the browser tab gently, like placing a final piece into a completed puzzle. I don't miss Jason. I miss the version of him I thought existed long before VP showed up in his planner. The version that might have lived for a year or two, before the allure of attention and validation swallowed him whole. But the man he became, the man who thought my stability was something to consume and resent and manipulate, the man who chose ego over honesty? No, I don't miss him at all. Here's the secret no one tells you about endings. Sometimes they're not cliffs. Sometimes they're elevators. You step out on a higher floor and wonder why you ever lived on the one below. I'm 35, starting over, with a clearer sense of what I deserve than I've ever had. A partner who values honesty. A partner who doesn't treat me like an ATM. A partner who doesn't need luxury to feel like someone. And the $3,500 necklace I never bought? It saved me